The digital space has become highly competitive. On an average, users spend about 5.5 seconds on your website, and in the initial 2.6 seconds, they have already decided whether to stay or leave your website. And if they are staying, they have identified the most visually appealing content on the site. In other words, this is the part of the website that essentially holds the viewer's attention and influences their buying choices. So the more views a website will get, the more sales that business will make. So how do we get the user's undivided attention in this overstimulated digital world? Good morning everyone. Today in Myra, we are going to show you some effective ways that can really enhance user experience and grab their attention. Have you observed that when exposed to a long list of things, you remember only some of them? This is because humans cannot retain much information in their short term memory. This especially holds true when people are bombarded with multiple abstract or unusual pieces of information in rapid succession. The human brain is not optimized for data memorization that web pages often demand. Hence, website designers must minimize the cognitive load on the user and reduce the distracting elements. One way to provide a pleasant user experience is by using Miller's Law. This law originated from a research paper published in 1956 by the cognitive psychologist George Miller. It states that the number of elements a human mind can hold in working memory are 7 plus or minus 2, which means that the human mind can typically hold 5 to 9 strings of elements regardless of the amount of information presented in one go. Miller's experiment and his passion for memory span was not centered around the number 7, but rather on the concept of chunking to memorize information. There are factors that influence how many chunks a person can retain, like the familiarity with content and context. But the key message is that short term memory is limited, and the method of chunking helps us retain information more effectively. In website designing, chunking can be used to break content into small, distinct bits of information in contrast to undifferentiated mass of information. This way, the content becomes easier to comprehend and remember. Users can then effectively scan the content, identify the information that aligns with their goal, and utilize that content easily and quickly. By structuring the content into visually distinct units, designers align the content in accordance with how people evaluate and process web pages. The simplest example of chunking is how debit card numbers are separated into clusters of 4 digits, which is easier to remember than a long string of numbers. An example of a bad website content will be one that has the dreaded wall of text, which lacks any formatting or hierarchy and exceeds the appropriate line length. This content becomes very hard to process and will result in lower user engagement with unpleasant user experience. This concept can also be leveraged to provide structured information dense content. This not only makes the result more visually pleasing, but it also makes the content scannable. Users who are skimming the latest headlines can determine whether the article is worthy of their attention and can quickly scan through it. Although being a vital concept in website designing, only chunking the content does not enhance user experience. Neuroscientists have identified various eye scanning techniques after conducting decades of research that have been known to impact the engagement with content on web pages. Eye tracking is a significant tool for website designing that shows what areas of a web page are grabbing the user's attention and the areas that are being ignored. This also helps us to understand how the user searches and grasps the content. Nielsen and Norman's eye tracking research has elucidated that users read web page content in an F shaped pattern. That is, users first read the content in a horizontal movement, usually the first few lines on the upper part of the content area. This forms the F stop line. Next, the users move down the page and hunt for keywords or points of interest. Once found, they read across, forming the second horizontal line of F. This usually covers a shorter area than the previous movement. Finally, users attempt to scan the content's left side in a vertical movement forming the F stem. This type of scanning technique is utilized for content heavy pages like blogs or articles. This pattern can be incorporated by enhancing the first two paragraphs by highlighting headers, bolding subheaders, and including bullet points and keywords. Heat maps generated after conducting research indicated that the first two lines of the page receive more attention than other lines. The first few words on the left hand side of each line of the text receive more fixations than the latter. Researchers have also indicated that the users may fixate on more words and read towards right again, thus forming an E. Interestingly, a recent line of research indicates that content in right to left languages like Arabic, users tend to read content in a flipped F shaped pattern. Another evidence based eye scanning technique is Z shaped scanning pattern. This pattern is applicable in almost every web interface since it includes almost all core elements like brand, hierarchy, structure, and call to action. Z pattern is ideal for interfaces where call to action is the main motive. This usually applies to web pages that are not content heavy and leverage white space effectively. This scanning arrangement mimics the route for the visual system to travel from left to right in a zigzag pattern. Users first scan from top left to top right, either because of the menu bar or the subconscious habit of reading from left to right. This creates the horizontal line of the alphabet Z. When the eye reaches towards the end, it shoots down and moves towards left again, perhaps because of the subconscious reading habit, creating an imaginary diagonal line. User then repeats the horizontal search in the lower part of the web page, again forming the lower horizontal line of Z. When applied to web pages, the most important content can be placed along the top and bottom corners, which visually connects them diagonally. Grasping the user's attention is an ever going battle a designer will face. Employing Miller's law and applying the concept of chunking would not only help users to scan and memorize the content more easily, but also increase engagement. Placing essential elements like call to action in the path of F shape and Z shape would also enhance the user experience and help users locate content more effectively. For more content like this, do subscribe to our channel.